we doing, everybody, and welcome in to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. It is Thursday, September 5th. I am excited. Football is back, right? The NFL is back today. Ravens, Chiefs, going to be squaring off here. Our first NFL game of the season. Who's excited? I mean, I'm excited. Is anybody else? I imagine most people are excited, right? We get to see this game. And then tomorrow night, we have the Packers and Eagles squaring off there. That is going to be coming. We saw the Packers, if you stay close on social media and everything like that. They took off. They flew down there. Can't wait for that game. On Peacock, I have seen a lot of people coming out now saying you can watch it on like NBC and everything like that. So hopefully everybody's able to watch the game in some way, shape, or form. If you didn't make the trip down to Sao Paulo there down in Brazil to watch the game, I don't know who would have. As many crazy things that I've heard coming out of there where, I mean, they're basically telling the teams like, hey, go down there, play football, come back. Don't do anything else in between. Like, that is just nuts. That is just nuts to me. But lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff there. Lots to get into today. I want to get into the Badgers a little bit more today. Kind of had overreaction day yesterday, I guess you could say. I want to talk and get into that a little bit more today here on the show. Also look at a little bit of Brewer talk. And then I got some season stat predictions. I've seen a lot of people out there doing their predictions and everything like that for the Packers. I was like, maybe I'll dive into that, see what I, think this Packers team is going to shake out to be. Some, statistic leaders who I think is going to lead in certain categories, stuff like that for the Green Bay Packers. So right away, I want to look at the Big Ten as in a whole to start today on the show here, talking, college football. I want to start college football here. The Big Ten power rankings. So Fox Sports came out with their Big Ten power rankings following last week's games or last weekend's games there. And I wouldn't say a huge surprise, and most of this list I actually agree with. So number one on the list, Ohio State, 1-0. They beat Akron 52-6, did everything they had to do, right? We saw Junkins and Henderson both go have good games out of the backfield for them there. And then also we saw their defense step up there. Gabe Powers and Ransom having pretty good days for Ohio State. Ohio State looked good against Akron. Now, yes, it's Akron. It's not a great team, but they look solid. So you give them the number one spot on that list there in the power rankings. Number two, Penn State. After a game where this was in Morgantown against West Virginia, I really, in my prediction, I predicted West Virginia to win that game. I really did. I didn't know what to expect out of Drew Aller. I thought it might be a tough first game for him, especially on the road, playing at West Virginia. And, I mean, they completely shut down West Virginia's rushing attack, held them to just 85 yards on 37 carries. Wasn't great by any means for the Mountaineers there. And then, I mean, offensively, they were solid, right? Drew Aller did what he had to do, and Penn State rolled. So Penn State looked solid in that game, 34-12. They got the win. I agree with that number two spot there. In the three spot, USC. I mean, LSU is a good team. Don't get me wrong. LSU is a good team. And in that game, I thought Lincoln Riley he was in a game where I thought he outcoached Brian Kelly. I thought he did everything, and they outplayed. I mean, you look at Miller Moss had a great game there at quarterback for USC. He's following in some big footsteps, right? I mean, to most people, Caleb Williams, big footsteps there at USC. And he's following in those big footsteps there, and he looked good in his first game out there. LSU is going to be definitely a top team in the SEC, and to see what USC was able to do, I mean, 27-20. Not a blowout win. It was a good game, right? That was a good game there. And, I mean, Miller Moss led USC down the field, put them ahead late in this one. USC looked good. I mean, better than I thought they were. USC, to me, looked like I was hoping Wisconsin would look. And I've heard a lot of people say that. USC looked good. I mean, all in all, this team came out. They were big, they were tough, they were fast, they got after LSU. At times looked like they were the outright better team at moments in that game. So, I mean, USC looked good. Oregon at the 4 spot, A lot of people saying, why is Oregon so low on this list? That is a talented team. You're right, that's a talented team, but Idaho had them on the ropes for most of that game. And a 24-14 finish in that one, though that, like we talked about with Wisconsin, they got the win. That's what matters. They got the win. Yeah, they did. They got the win. They weren't impressive in that win. So, they're going to have this game coming up this week here. Hopefully a little bit of a prove-it game for Oregon. But all in all, I mean, it was one of those games for Oregon where they got the win, but it just wasn't impressive on the way there, which is what, we talked about with Wisconsin was they got the win. It just wasn't impressive on their route there. That's the same as Michigan against Fresno State there. Fresno State played tough against Michigan and exploited some things in Michigan. Now Michigan will have to take on number 4 Texas. That'll be a big game in Ann Arbor. College GameDay will be there, a big atmosphere for that one. If they can hang close or even beat Texas, that changes a lot of minds. As of right now, I'm picking Texas to win that game, but that should be a very good game there between those two. Iowa comes in that 6th spot. If they found an offense, the Big Ten better be careful. Cade McNamara, I always mess his name up. He had 21 for 31, 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. They had nearly 500 yards of total offense and converted 7 of 15 times on 3rd down. I know it was against Illinois State. I know it was. Not a great team. If they can find a way to make this sustainable, some kind of offensive threat, Iowa's going to be a dangerous team. So watch out for them. They have them in the 6th spot right now. Nebraska in the 7. They beat UTEP 40-7. Finally looked like some good things happening there. Maryland beat UConn 50-7. UConn is nowhere near good in football like they are in basketball. So we do see Maryland get the win there in the 8th spot. Wisconsin comes in the 9th spot. They, we know what happened, beat Western Michigan there, but it was not impressive. And you hear a lot of people, a lot of critics out there talking about Wisconsin and what's wrong. Is Luke Fickle really the guy? Everything like that. So we're going to get into a little bit of those questions and topics today here. But Wisconsin in the 9, and then we see Rutgers in the 10. Washington at 11 right now. They did beat Weber State. Rutgers beat Howard. And then we see Illinois. They got the home win over Eastern Illinois. Indiana got the win over FIU. Purdue got the win over Indiana State. Northwestern got the win over Miami. Michigan State got the win over Florida Atlantic. 16-10. Not an impressive. The way that Michigan State has fallen off over the years is just crazy. It's just crazy to me. Seeing where they once were to what they are now. That is just nuts. So Michigan State comes in the 16th spot. And then Minnesota comes in, the only team in the Big Ten to lose last week. They lose to North Carolina on a field goal late, 19-17 in that one. And then UCLA comes in the 18th spot. They did get the win over Hawaii, 16-13 on the road. So traveled down to Hawaii and won that one. Great for them, I guess, there. 16-13, not an impressive win, I guess. And that's what has them down in that 18 spot right now. So there are your Big Ten power rankings according to Fox right now. And what Fox has to say. I agree with that list. I don't really see a problem in anything that they put on there. I would have that top 4. I completely agree with Michigan in the 5, Iowa in the 6, and then from down there, I saw Wisconsin as in the 9-10 range, 11 maybe. So that's where I have them sitting right now. So I agree with that power ranking there. I saw a lot of people, I saw it on social media and a lot of people talking about the power rankings around like Wisconsin groups and everything like that. So I just wanted to look at that power ranking, kind of shoot it out there, see what I had to think about it. And I'm going to say right now, I agree with the power rankings and where they have everybody ranked in those categories. So I want to get to the Badgers now, talking about a little bit of what we talked about yesterday there on the show there, kind of dial it back, kind of get into it a little bit more today here and give my explanation on some of the things that I had to say yesterday about Wisconsin. So one of my biggest issues, I had it with Wisconsin last season there, and I still have it with Wisconsin because of what I saw in the first game. When Phil Longo and Luke Fickle came to town, the big thing with Wisconsin football is it was going to be this air raid offense, right? That was we ended up calling it the dairy raid. And it was like, okay, we got this air raid offense now that's going to incorporate more, a pass heavy. We're going to try to get the ball down the field, look for some deep shots, and try to exploit holes in this defense. It's a lot of shotgun, right? We're running a lot of shotgun plays, some out of the pistol, but a lot of shotgun plays. Generally 3 to 4 wide receivers out there. And we're going to see what happens, right? My biggest issue with that, so you look at Wisconsin, especially, last season and now into this season against Western Michigan. The pass protection for Wisconsin, I was not impressed by the offensive line for the Badgers. I thought, honestly, they lost the trenches in that game. I did not see a passing play where I was like, Wisconsin won that on the offensive line. There's a lot of issue there in pass protecting. Now, are they big and slow? It's something that you don't categorize when you looked. Let's just look past Wisconsin. When everybody used to think Wisconsin, they were like running backs, offensive linemen. That's where they come from. Running backs, offensive linemen, that's what Wisconsin's going for. We get this new head coach, everything like that. We get this new air raid offense, and it's like, okay, now we go away from the offensive line. Now we don't need this, big, hefty offensive line that can pass block for you, can, open up holes for the running backs, can give quarterbacks time to try and make a throw. None of that is there right now. So, and like I said, it's only one game that we saw. So you don't want to get into this moment where we're constantly overreacting to one game. But when you look at that game as a whole, and I had to rewatch it again because I was thinking about that. I was thinking about pass protection. And I was like, looking at this air raid offense, what does it need to succeed? What does an air raid offense need to succeed? Well, you look at the playbook. Some of it's going to be quick, methodical passes, making things happen quickly, right? But a lot of it is it seems like you're always sneaking a guy behind, right? Whether it's Bryson Green or it's Will Pauling or it's, somebody else out on the outside there like Williams. You're trying to sneak guys deep, and trying to make the big play. The Badgers aren't making the big play. They haven't had that big play threat, right? So that leads to the Badgers doing a lot of things over the middle. They want to do a lot of things over the middle, and it's a lot of mid-level stuff. When all you can do is throw the mid-level ball. What makes Ohio State, what makes Oregon, what makes Alabama, all these teams so dangerous is they have a lot of playmakers, right? But outside of that, they have the ability that if you try to defend them one way, right, you're trying to take away the flats, right? We're running this. We're trying to take away the flats right now. We're trying to take away the middle of the field. Well, we have guys that have burner speed, and if you try to go man-to-man with us right now, we're going to take you deep. And we know we can win one-on-one balls with these guys. So, for me, for Wisconsin to succeed, number one, it starts in the trenches for me. I got to see this Wisconsin offensive line give Tyler Van Dyke time in the pocket, right? They got to give him time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Tyler Van Dyke here in a second, but I got to see the offensive line give him time. Because everybody likes to say, well, the Badgers don't have money. They don't have all these playmakers. There's no talent in the room, everything like that. I believe the Badgers have talent at the wide receiver position. Will Pauling, Bryson Green, CJ Williams. I think there's talent in that wide receiver room. And Vinny Anthony, right? There is talent in that room. But the Badgers can't use that talent. They're almost predictable, right? When the Badgers can't, you look at last season. It was like they tried to get away from the run, but they couldn't get away from the run because they constantly had to get back to it because this offense, this air raid offense, wasn't there. I don't think it's an air raid offense. I think they call it an air raid offense. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're trying to make it. The scheme looks like an air raid offense, but it's like bits and pieces pulled out of an air raid offense. It's like bits and pieces of we're trying to do like an advanced Paul Chryst playbook, right? Where we're adding more pass. We're trying to get more pass. The RPOs, whatever it is, right? I thought Tyler Van Dyke looked good in RPO situations. But how often are we going to be able to get in those situations before we become predictable, right? You got to be able to exploit defenses in different ways. The Badgers almost become predictable. I saw a article on the special teams for the Badgers. They had that fake field goal that they almost housed, Western Michigan did. And if you actually, somebody had a lot of time on their hands because they actually went back and they looked at the scheme and they looked at a lot of the kicks that the Badgers had and their defense heading up for that kick, and the defense was always the same. They always ran the same scheme on those plays. So when you get predictable, bad things happen because you got out schemed. I heard an interview with Luke Fickle, and he said they came with a good game plan, and they were able to adjust, and they did this, and they did that. Okay, so if we're getting out schemed by Western Michigan, does that not worry you about Alabama, USC with Lincoln Riley? Well, I mean, you're not playing Ohio State, but Oregon. Or even Penn State or Iowa. If you got out schemed by Western Michigan, does it not concern you moving forward that you are not going into games with a good game plan, right? So then, especially on the offensive side, so then is it a Luke Fickle problem or is it a Phil Longo problem? I was excited when they first brought in Phil Longo because I was excited for this new style, up-tempoed offense. I was excited for it, right? We were so used to we're going to ground and pound until you get sick of it, and then you're going to load the box on us. I got so sick of seeing that I was excited for this new style of offense. And instead, I've got like an advanced version of it, but it at times doesn't seem as even productive as what we were seeing before. So is that Fickle's problem then, or is it Phil Longo? Well, I think it starts with Longo, right? I think Longo is, if it's, play calling, if it's scheming up before you even get to the game, if it's game film, whatever it is, I think Longo's got to be better. But then at the end of the day, it's on Luke Fickle to get onto Longo to say, hey, man, I mean, how are we going to compete with the likes of the rest of this Big Ten conference? Because it got better, right? I mean, you're talking about you added in Oregon, you added in Washington, you're adding good teams. It's going to get better. How are you going to compete in that kind of Big Ten with what you're doing right now? The plan when Luke Fickle came to town was the Badgers were going to be this competitive football team, right? And they were going to be at top of the Big Ten. They were going to compete for titles. They were going to get advanced. They were going to get past what Paul Chryst was in Madison. They were going to get over the Paul Chryst was like almost a guaranteed 7 to 8 wins a season. That's where he was. He was almost guaranteed. Now it's like, okay, so if he was there and now we're getting like 7 wins a season, did we get better by hiring on this big name coach, right? I don't know. I like Jim Leonard. I don't know if Jim Leonard was going to be the right guy, right? Jim Leonard was not this travel around the country and go recruit all these guys. So I'm not going to say that, sit here and say that Jim Leonard would have been the better option. I'm not saying that Luke Fickle was a bad option. What I'm saying right now is what I'm seeing in Madison right now from last year to this season is a lot of the same. And is it, you don't want to get too early on it because, like I said, it's early in the season yet. Well, it's just worrisome, I guess you could say. It's worrisome because it seems like a lot of the same in Madison right now, and it doesn't seem like anything's changing, that it's getting better. Right, and you're not throwing in the towel. I'm not throwing in the towel on this season. I truthfully believe that this Badger team has the potential to do some good. I really do. I really do. I just got to see it, man. I got to see it. I got to see this Badger team in this South Dakota game come out firing, look like a completely, just this air. I got to see this offense just look like it is meant to be in the Big Ten, that it can compete at a high level. Because right now, I don't know if it can compete against some of the top teams. I think it can compete against bad teams. I really do. I just don't think it can compete against those top teams. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on there is this offense because, like I said, I mean, what offense is it? I think that's something that we need clarification on. Because right now, I don't know if it's air raid, if it's just a shotgun scheme. I don't know what you would call it. I don't know what you would call it, but they definitely need to figure that out in those sorts. Like I started talking about him a little bit, but I didn't, get full into it because I wanted to talk about him here. I went on this little tangent yesterday about Tyler Van Dyke. And I would say with Tyler Van Dyke, my biggest thing with him in that last game, it wasn't that he was just downright terrible because like I mentioned, I mean, I thought he was good in RPOs. I thought at times he made good decisions, but there was those other times. And I don't know if it was the jitters of the first game or what it was with Tyler Van Dyke. But what I saw out of him was a lot of, I mean, he's a veteran, right? He's a been there, done that guy. He's been in college football for 5 years now. What I saw with him was a lot of times either he'd hold on to the ball too long. And like I said, this is a lot to do before, like I was saying, with the offensive line. But it was a lot of times where he was holding on to the football too long. He wasn't making a quick read, right? And at other times, I thought he was bailing too early. I thought he wasn't letting a play develop. He was bailing out of it there. Now that could be new team, new atmosphere, first game. It's going to lead to those kind of things. But I just thought at times there it was either I'm holding on to the football too long or I'm bailing out too early and I'm dumping it off to a running back. There has to be the happy medium in there where you're letting the play develop. That's also going to lead to the deep ball threat. That's also going to lead to receivers being able to actually run their routes that they're assigned and making things happen out there. I think the offensive line will get a little weathered. They'll get some weather to them. They'll get, they'll get into it this season here, and I think they'll settle down. They'll start to get, kind of together, understanding each other's tendencies, everything like that, and the offensive line will be fine. I'm not saying that the offensive line is going to be a complete wash for the season. That first game, that would be the thing that worried me. Would simply be just it could have been jitters, it could have been this, it could have been that, but I just thought at times he held on to the football too long, at other times it was the bailout. He was getting out of the pocket too soon. That's what I got the feeling with where I compared him to Tanner Mordecai from last season, because Tanner Mordecai was that same way. I thought he bailed on plays too soon and tried to use his legs instead of trying to use his playmakers, right? And you look at a lot of these other teams, you look at a lot of the guys who have been there, done that, quarterbacks who will stand in there until the last possible second and make a throw, right? Make the read, make the throw when it's open there. Not forcing it into windows, not forcing balls. There was a couple times against Western Michigan where I thought he was honestly going to get intercepted. That was in the red zone. He got lucky a couple times there. Those kinds of things will happen. I'm not going to say they're not going to happen. What I'm saying is that Tyler Van Dyke, being the veteran presence that he's supposed to be inside of that locker room, inside of that huddle, I have to see him show that to me on the field there, where he's not afraid to stand in there, maybe feel the heat down his back, step up, make a throw, let the playmakers do their thing, let plays develop. That's the big thing that I want to see out of Tyler Van Dyke. You have to see that before Alabama. Otherwise, that game is going to be a complete just crap show in Madison. If the offense cannot figure it out here, this weekend, and then leading up into next week, that's a bad game to be trying to figure anything out is against Alabama. You got to be going into Alabama feeling it. You got to go into that game against Alabama knowing what you have and what you want to be looking for. And if you're still trying to figure it out after South Dakota, if you're still reeling after South Dakota, that leads to troubles there because you got Alabama, you got USC back-to-back there. Those are two tough opponents that you don't want to face while you're struggling. So hopefully the Badgers on offense figure it out this weekend here, and everything is right with the world on that side of it there. So that's about all I had for Badger Talk. I just wanted to getting some clarification from what I was talking about yesterday. I had a little bit of an overreaction on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Had a little bit of an overreaction on a Wednesday. Had to just dial it back today and just try to talk it out and see what, everybody else is thinking out there, because everybody else has their feelings on certain things, and that's where I'm at right now on this Badger team and this Badger offense. So I want to get into the Brewers. A lot of talk. Peguero came in and he blew that game against the Cardinals there in extra innings. As I'm watching the end of this game here for the Brewers against the Cardinals, also in extra innings on this Wednesday night, I am going to be honest with you. Obi Milner's another guy for me that I don't need to see, right? I don't need to see him. I don't know why we're throwing him in this situation. Whatever. It's one of those things. People want to be so ticked off about Peguero because, yes, I get it. Peguero, when he has inherited runners, it's not Gouda. It's not Gouda. He's not a guy who gets you out of those spots right now. I mean, inherited run, he's got a 3 ERA, but with inherited runners, I believe the stat was like 16 of 25 have scored against them. Not a great stat. Not a great stat whatsoever, right? But Obi Milner is going to be on that same leash for me right now because, man, oh man, if it's not the same stat inherited runners, it's just his own runners that are scoring at this point. He has been struggling this season for the Brewers. He has been struggling mightily. When Brian Hudson comes back, I tell you what right now, because another thing I want to talk about was how DL Hall and Aaron Ashby have both looked solid since coming back up for the Brewers. That is the guy I'm sending down. I am not sending down Hall. I'm not sending down Ashby. I am sending down Obi Milner, and that's it. That's it. I'm going to be honest with you right now. You want best bullpen scenario, those two staying up are my best bullpen scenario. They give me two lightning arms out of the bullpen. Velocity, strikeout stuff, everything like that. Those are my guys. I'm not sticking with Milner there. So there's my tangent for the day. I had to get fired up about something, right? I just watched Milner give up that run. Hopefully the Brewers can come back here. We're talking about a win here shortly. But, I mean, all in all, so Peguero taking a lot of heat from his blunder there. Gave up a couple runs there late in the game. Cardinals end up winning that game. And I will agree. Peguero is not good when he inherits runners, right? I think Peguero is a solid arm. He's a solid arm. He was a fresh arm at the time. He's a solid arm. Now, if Paredes is ready to go, down there in the minors, I would not be opposed to bringing back Paredes and sending Peguero back down if he has an option. I would not be opposed to that. And then when Bryce Wilson comes back, well, then you have to figure something else out because I'm guessing you're going to want a roster spot for Bryce Wilson. But if it comes to playoffs, Savali would be in, and I would bring him in because my postseason pitching, if DL Hall keeps pitching like he is, I want a lefty in my rotation. I'm putting DL Hall in my rotation, and I'm rolling out with Ray, Tobias Myers, Freddie, and DL Hall. That's just where I would shake it. I don't know what it is, what that feeling is for me, but that's the way I would shake it right now. But Peguero, he struggled with inherited runners. I am completely in agreement with that. What I'm saying right now is that he's got his ups and downs with him, just like we had with Payamps, we've had with a couple of different pitchers out there. I don't think Peguero is going to hold on to a roster spot once, Bryce Wilson's healthy and also Brian Hudson comes back. I think Peguero will be the short leash guy who will be sent down. I think Paredes should get a shot to come back at some point here. If he doesn't, I am going to be severely upset with that whole ordeal because he was phenomenal in his first little stretch here with the Brewers before he got hurt. So hopefully we see him come back at some point here. Another guy I wanted to talk about was Eric Haas. And, I mean, he had the big home run last night there to tie it late in this one. Ended up, we'll see how it ends up here. Eric Haas has been nothing but fantastic for the Brewers this season. I mean, he's sitting there. He's got a 298 average, 11 RBIs, 14 hits, and 47 at-bats, 4 home runs. Haas has been solid. He's been solid for this Brewers team. I think he should get more playing time. I really do. I think he should get more playing time. I look at some of the other guys that they're rolling out there at times, like a Bowers. I'm not even going to get into Bowers because that I understand why they have Bowers. I do. Backup first baseman, lefty. I get it with him. But I'll be honest with you. If push came to shove, if I was in a playoff series and I wanted Hoskins to be the DH or the first baseman for that game and I needed a DH, Eric Haas would be a fine DH for me. I'll be honest. Eric Haas would be a fine DH. You want to DH Sanchez? Okay. But if you really look at the two sample sizes between Sanchez and Haas, Haas, he's only got 47 at bats. Sanchez has got 204. But you look at the RBIs, Haas has 11 in 47 at bats. And then you look at 34 RBIs and 204 at bats for Gary Sanchez. Haas has done a lot with a little. Sanchez has done decent with a lot. How do you shake that out? I would not be opposed to Eric Haas getting more playing time. I wouldn't. As I see him strike out, he does me dirty. I'm sorry. I'm talking good about this guy, and he strikes out for me in the 10th. I feel bad now. He must have heard me talking. But even if he has been solid for this Brewers team, he has, and it would be a shame for him to waste a stretch like he's having. He was hot in the spring for the Brewers. He was good in the minors for the Brewers. They brought him up. He's been solid in pinch hit roles and everything like that. Give this guy some playing time down the stretch, and I just want to see what he does. I want to see what he does. If you get a bat like that hot going into the postseason, come on. Let it roll. Let it roll with it, because that would be, talk about a story. That'd be awesome. Now, with our luck, we'll probably designate him for assignment at some point. That's the way we like to do those kind of things. There's just that line. 0 for 13 with runners in scoring position. If you want to talk about an Achilles heel or an issue with the Brewers, runners in scoring position, and especially bases loaded. Those two things are a constant issue for this Brewers team. If you were going into a postseason series and you had to say, what is the biggest problem with the Brewers? That's your biggest problem, is their ability to drive in runs, their ability to put the ball in play and make things happen. We're watching it right now in this Cardinals game, late in this one. Jackson Chourio, hopefully he can step up once again and be that guy for the Brewers. But we constantly see this Brewers team struggling to find a way to put the ball in play and make things happen. Now, I know it's harder said, it's tough. It is tough to just, we could say, it should be easy to go and do it, but sometimes it's tough. Major league pitching is tough to hit, but this Brewers team needs to find a way. They need to find a way to put guys on and to find a way to drive them in. Great at getting guys on base, putting guys in scoring position, but then what? Then what happens after that? If it's not two guys on for Willy Adames, because we know Willy Adames is going to drive him in, right? Especially with two guys on, it's strikeout, fly out, shallow fly out, usually because they don't end up with a sac fly. It's a struggle to find a way to score runs with runners in scoring position. So I don't know. It's going to be the Achilles heel for this team. I guarantee it. If it get into a postseason game, that's going to be the one thing that might come to bite them at the end of it, is the struggle to drive in runs when they're there. And that is, been a problem all season, and it just continues to be a problem. Hopefully they start to figure out that problem here sooner rather than later there. So that's about all I got for the Brewers. Hopefully, we're wrapping up the show here with the Brewers win. We got Hoskins up with 2 outs and 2 on. That is a terrible call. This umpire, who is behind the plate tonight for this Brewer game? Because everything that I've seen tonight, this guy has been just hot garbage. Umpires this season, I don't know if they just want robotic umpires, if that's what they're praying for, but they have been downright bad. Jeremy Riggs is behind home plate. He has been bad. Outside, good 3 inches, not liking it. Not liking those calls there. Hopefully I'm talking about a Brewers win here in a minute, because otherwise, those dang Redbirds there. So let's get to the backers. I want to get to my season stat predictions, some of the things that I could see shaking out here for this team coming up this season, because we got the game coming up Friday. Tomorrow, I want to get into the preview show. I don't want to be talking about predictions, so I want to get into the predictions right now here. So, my first prediction, Jordan Love will throw for over I'm going to give him 4,500 yards. I think he's going to be around that 4,500 yard mark. And I think he's going to throw for 34 touchdowns. Book it, take it to the bank. Book it and take it to the bank. Those are my predictions for Jordan Love on the season there. I don't think I have to go into rushing yards because I don't think he's gonna light the world on fire with his legs coming up this season. But I'm gonna look at passing yards and touchdowns there. I think he's gonna go for over 4,500, and I think he's going to have 34 touchdowns. If not over, I think he's gonna be just at 34 or 4,500 there for Green Bay. Josh Jacobs is going to go for over 1,000 yards. Boom. I don't know what it is. I just got that feeling. Now, it's going to be tough. That is going to be tough. If any of my stat predictions that I'm going to give you right now, the hardest one I think is going to be Josh Jacobs going for 1,000 yards, simply because I think the workload is going to be dispersed between him and Lloyd and Emmanuel Wilson. But I think just the way Josh Jacobs is going to start the year, I think they're going to stick with him. And I really feel Josh Jacobs is going to have, if not 1,000 yards, I think he's going to be just on the cusp of 1,000 yards there. My receiving room, I have Romeo Doubs leading the Packers in, I'm going to just venture to say, most statistical categories. I think he's going to lead in yards. I think he's going to lead in receptions there. I think he's probably going to honestly lead in touchdowns. I think he's going to be that red zone guy for the Green Bay Packers. I think he's going to be trailed by Wicks. It's going to be close. I honestly think, a lot of opposing fans and everything like that like to poke fun at the Packers because, our big thing is we don't have a number one wide receiver. We don't. And I really do think between Dobbs, Wicks, Watson, and Reed, I think this 4 wide receiver core, the stats are going to be darn close, just like it was last season. I mean, you look at last season's stats there. You had Jaden Reed with 793, Dobbs with 674, Wicks with 581, and then Watson, injury-riddled, 9 games. He had 422 yards in 9 games. That tells you how explosive he was in those games. So I'm looking at those 4 guys and saying those 4 guys right there will have big seasons. I think they're going to all be close in statistics. And I think, for me, I think they're going to be all around that. I think Dobbs is honestly going to be probably close to like the 800 range there. And then I think we're going to, maybe close to 900. Then think we're going to see Wicks close behind. I think we'll see Watson in that room. And I think we're going to see Reed in that room too. So if it's not in that 800, I think it's going to be the 800 range. And I think it's going to slowly drop off from there. But I think all those guys will be very close there. I think that we're going to see Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave combined for over 800 yards receiving. Book it on that one. I think those guys will be downright impressive this season here. I think those guys are going to go for combined 800 yards receiving there. I think it's going to be downright impressive. I don't know if my receiver stats are going to hold up. That's why I have my tight ends getting over in that 800 range for receiving, because I don't know if all 4 of my receivers are going to be in the same grouping there. I think it might end up a little bit like it did last season there with, Reed led them in receiving. I think we could see Dobbs way up top there with like 800 yards. And then I think we could see Wicks, in the high 600, 700 range. And then I think we'll see Watson in there. And then I think we'll see Reed to follow it up there. I think Reed will take a little bit of a step back. I think Dobbs will jump ahead of him there in that category. In the kicking room, I want to look in the kicking room now because this is the guy. I think he's going to have a good year. I think Musgrave is going to have a big season. I'll be honest with you. I think he's going to have a big season. Or Narveson. Sorry, my mistake there. I think Narveson is going to have a big year for the Packers. The new kicker coming to town. I'm going to put a bold prediction. I think he's going to be 91%. 91%. I think he'll sit in that range this season. Looking at last year's statistics, some of the top guys, I was just going to pull them up here. Top kickers from last season. In field goal percentage, let's see. I mean, Bucker was 94%. We saw Folk go 96. We saw Fairbairn go 96. I think we're going to see. Yeah, I'm gonna give Musgrave, or not. I keep calling him Musgrave. I'm gonna give Narveson. I'm gonna give him the nod at 91%. I feel like he's gonna be in that 91% range on the season there. I think Rashawn Gary is gonna go for 12 sacks. 12 sacks. Book it. Take it to the bank. Give me that cheddar. I think we're going to see Gary have a massive year for the Packers. I think, he had that injury a couple years ago. He's slowly working his way back. I think this season here, Rashawn Gary just goes on a burner. I think he does. And I think he ends up with 12 sacks on the year. It might be bold. I don't know. He had 9 last season there. I think he's going to have 12 in this one. Quay Walker leads the team in tackles, while also recording 6 sacks. That'll be a big step forward from last season there. Last season, he had 2.5 sacks, and he had 118 tackles. He led the team in tackles last year, so not a huge step in that category. But I think in this new Halfley defense, I think Quay Walker is going to be able to blitz a little bit more, get into the backfield. I'm going to see. I can't wait to see if he can get to that category there, to the 5, 6 sacks in that range there. I think he definitely could take that step forward. Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt combined for 13.5 sacks. I'll give him 14.5. Last season there, Devontae Wyatt had, let's just see here, I believe he had 5.5 sacks. I think Devontae Wyatt had 5.5 sacks, and Kenny Clark had 7.5. So together, those guys had 13 there. If my math is right, I believe it is. I think they're going to end up in that 14.5. I could even see them in that 15.5 range. I think Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt are due for some huge seasons coming up this year. I'm going to look next at Lucas Van Ness. I think Lucas Van Ness is going to have a breakout season for the Packers. Last season, he recorded, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had 4 sacks on the season last year. I had his name and then I lost him there. There he is. 4 sacks on the year last year. He had 32 total tackles. And, that was all good and dandy there. I'm going to give him... I'm going to give him he's going to have a breakout year. I think he's going to double in sacks. I think it's going to be a huge year for Lucas Van Ness there. So give him 8 sacks. I'm going to go with probably about 50 to 60 tackles on the season there. He's going to be a machine. He's going to be a machine in there for the Packers. And my last bold prediction, Keyshawn Nixon is going to once again lead the league in return yards. And he's also going to have 2 house calls. I think he's going to have 2 house calls. If he has more, great. I think he's going to have 2 house calls on the season. Yeah, I think 2 house calls isn't crazy. I think it's, reasonable. I think it's a reasonable ask out of him there. So that's where I stand right now in my stat predictions. I think it's going to be a big year. I really do. And I think it's going to be a big year for the wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers. I think those guys are going to go off. I really could see, multiple guys in that room recording over 600 yards. I really could. I could see multiple guys getting over 600 yards. I think Jordan Love's going to have a massive year. I am excited. Maybe I'm far-fetched on my stats. That's what I'm here for. I got to be far-fetched every once in a while, right? You got to be. I'm hoping I'm not. I'm hoping all my stats come true because that'd be awesome. So, with that, that's about all I got for today. We went through Brewers, Badgers, Packers. We got lots more to get into tomorrow here on the show as we get into our weekend preview. We got Packer preview. We got Badger preview. We got Brewer talk to get to. So much to get to, and hopefully, we're talking about a lot of wins coming out of that preview, right? We're talking a lot of wins. We preview it, we get to the games, lots of wins after that, and then we're coming back happy talking about it on Monday, right? That's all we can ask for. That's all we can ask for there. So with that, like I always say, if you can, like, subscribe, give us a follow, go on any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it is, search Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. You can find us there. Give us a follow there. Give us a shout out. Let your friends know about the show. That'd be awesome. Let them know where you found us, wherever podcast platform, YouTube, Spotify, wherever. Let them know about the show. Make sure they're listening because, I mean, we got to all learn together, right? We got to all learn together. I'm not teaching anybody anything. I'm learning with you guys as we go along. So with that, that's about all we got for today. This has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday. But until we talk to you guys again tomorrow, deuces.
Yeah, oh my Lord, watch me sway. Darkness falls and we all pray, hoping for the light of day. Down to the river, I have held the devil's hand, felt the weight of my own sin, burdened by the heart of man. Down to the river, down to the river.